It is. Good morning. It's the 4th of June 2025. Windy, bit of showery, not bad weather, mild. You wouldn't need a fire. Here in rural Ireland, this is just a general news update of interest to my viewers. The first thing is that the Ukraine war has taken a turn, and it depends on how you look at it, whether it's for the worse or not. Now, one thing I want to tell you is that the Ukrainian people, who are almost certainly only proxies for the British are running the show there. You remember that Boris Johnson went over and stopped the peace process. The Americans under Trump are not just as big into it, although it's debatable if Trump has much say. It looks like they're able to circumvent him and get around him with Lindsey Graham and all these people. So, as you know, it's historical for the British to hate the Russians and to fight them, and the Germans the same. Now, what happened was the Ukrainians managed to get a lorry with an open top on it up near the Curse Bridge and bomb it. How bad it is, we don't know. To say it's open again, that's a big, huge, long bridge, several kilometres long, leading into the Crimea. It's Putin's pet project. He built it since 2014. Now, the other thing they did then is they knocked out a good few jet bombers, or big planes designed for dropping bombs, including nuclear bombs. Now, you might ask how they were out in the open like that, and that's because of an agreement between the world powers for non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. You have to leave your bombers out in the open where they can be seen from the sky. Only for that, they could be covered and hidden in a hangar. So Ukraine took advantage of that law, and they bombed some of them. Now, the extent to which they destroyed these planes is not sure. I'd guess myself it could be 4% of Russia's bombing fleet. But nuclear bombs can be launched by means of an intercontinental ballistic missile. They can be launched by a shorter range missile with nuclear warheads. And then there's Orifnik missile. This is a new design. It's a supersonic missile. It goes up into space. It travels along space very, very fast, and then it comes down, and it has a heat shield, and it comes down. So this piece of wooden handle here, for example, in the front of it, it has a head. There are, I think it's 8 separate rockets in the front. So when it goes up, as it comes down, it goes through the heat, very high heat with the friction. There's a heat shield like the space shuttle, and then when it's down low enough, this opens and lets out the whatever number it is of the smaller rockets containing either conventional explosives or ethnic, isn't that the name of them, and or nuclear. So if they're trying to defend against that, and it gets in and gets delivered in its smaller payload, the enemy has to decide which of them will hit. So you'd need 8 counter rockets or counter missiles to knock them out, to lock onto them and knock them out. So there's no point just knocking out one if the other one is the one that they're trying to get you with. So you have to knock out all. Now, the Russians claim it's nearly foolproof. So this is the point. Now, there's no doubt the British were involved, and indeed it's possible that Trump is partly implicated. He's silent. He has said nothing about it. Now, some people say, oh, well, sure, it's great to give them a bloody nose. I've explained the thing to you. You can make up your own mind. So the world waits with bated breath, wondering what Russia will do. What Russia will do. It's very hard to know, and I don't want to give an opinion because it might be used maybe somewhere or other. The worst case scenario is that Russia will hit bases in Germany. But remember, it's mutual assured destruction. Mad. So really, the first one to press the button normally wins a nuclear war because you knock out the other side. Putin is under pressure to do that, but the consequences for the world are frightening. Now, most people are concerned, except in Ireland. Paddy isn't one bit worried. Oh, Oh, he's not a bit worried. All he's worried about is, will the services for the fish and chip shops continue? Will they come in with the big black bags and he can ring up or he can go online and get his big feed of chips, uh, what do you call it, kebab, and and sausages, cocktail sausage, or what do you call them, batter sausage. That's all that's worrying him. And could he get it? Another big problem with the paddy is you have to go to the shop to buy the carry-out of Guinness. And that's a disgrace. There should be a government subsidy to bring the Guinness up to them. Bring the Guinness up to them. They can lie on the sofa and look at the football for the whole Saturday and the sun cracking the stones outside. So that's Paddy's worry now. That's Paddy's worry. But still, a nuclear war might affect him somewhere or other. Now we leave that. Now the other thing is the Dutch government has collapsed. Geert Wilders he's on my side. He's a conservative man, and he formed a coalition because they wouldn't let him be prime minister, even though he had the largest party. So they brought a civil servant to run it, but Geert told him straight, you have to stop the migration. Exactly what I'm saying. And the government refused to do it. Now, Sinn Féin fellas have tackled me, a few of them, quietly. I don't mind them doing that. And they said, how are you going to stop the migration? So here's an example of the Dutch government proposal to stop the migration, send most of them back, especially those from Syria and all there. There's been a peace agreement there anyway. Send them back, and the Dutch government refused to do it. Not because it can't be done, but because they want mass migration. So that proves the point there. Now, it'll be the autumn. They'll have a caretaker government for the moment, and meanwhile, the migrants will pour in, and they'll get full dole, full everything in preference to the Dutch. But in the autumn, in September, there will be an election, almost certainly, unless they can patch something up, but I don't think so. So there'll be an election, and that election, the way I'm looking at it anyway, should be a referendum on migration. So it's cranking up. Now, one of the things that a feature that people very often don't understand, and my schoolmaster told us at school as young as in Irish history, he was from the Gaeltacht area of Donegal, how the king in Britain in the plantations granted the land. He just signed an order, granted the land to his people, ex-military men, but they still had to go over and take it. And in many unions, and in my time working for the government, there were circulars issued giving us certain rights, certain union rights. And we'd get it passed at conference that go to the top minister and he'd agree, right, we'll give you that. It might be about rostering. And the minute that was brought in, you had to fight for it at local level. No one ever went with the agreement. They always tried to stop it at local level. So if the people were weak at local level, the directive meant nothing. The right to get a roster meant nothing, and not to change it. If you were tough, then it meant something. And there was friction then between the local management and the staff because they wouldn't implement the agreed thing. So this is a big thing to understand. When you get our people like me into power, that's only the start of it. A full example of that is President Trump. They're trying to oust him every way they can. They're still at it big time. So it's a hard fight. Maybe at some stage they give up and you just walk all over them and go back the way we were. So I'm just explaining that to you. I mentioned about the Polish people. I asked the Polish people, we have been good to them here, they've been good to us, but I ask you people, please embed in your people at home, when you're at home on holidays, mention to them that the farmer with cows wants them to vote for the lad that won the last day there, that Nakarov, or a funny name, but he's a conservative. He won by just a tiny majority. Please make sure that when the next election comes around, his party wins by a landslide. That's all I ask of you from Poland. Come here and have a good time, enjoy your lives, and rear your family in peace, and pray with us in the chapel. And all I'm asking you in favour is, when you go home to your mother or your cousins, tell them that we're being asked to vote Conservative. That's all I ask. So I think that's nearly all the news. Now elsewhere, this general news item anyway, and generally there's very little in the media about the collapse of the Dutch government, and that's because it's done by a Conservative. If it was done by a socialist or a woke, it'd be all over the news. But because it's done by Gert Wilders, all that's out there is condemnation. Oh, this horrible man, this horrible man. You need to understand the level of indoctrination. Now, another little bit of news is that the Thames Water Authority, which covers Greater London and Greater London, has collapsed when the American investment company finally realised there was no money in it and they pulled out. Now, also, I just deal with the steel company in Scunthorpe. That was owned by a Chinese company. The Starmer idiot imposed such tariffs with carbon taxes that they just threw it there. Now, he's trying to nationalise it because he wants the war. But they didn't get their money back, and they're now going to court to try and get him to pay the money that's owed to them out of the company. They would close it up and sell it off. It's been a disaster. So what happened with the UK Steel in woke Britain is they thought they could hand it over to the Chinese and they'd run it. But it couldn't be run or couldn't be marketed at the price of the product. But you see, there's a strategic element in steel. And so the government is bailing it out and pouring money into it because they need steel for the war. Now, it took them a long time to discover that. So that's one thing Putin has done. So, but the Chinese are not getting their money back. They're going to walk off, and after them investing in it, the government intends giving them nothing. So they're going to court. Now, the other thing then is that with Thames Water, they did what they do with the windmills, and I went to a lot of trouble to explain to you how the renewable energy racket works. You don't buy any land because if you own the land, you're liable and they can take the land off you. So you leave it with the farmer. That means it's the farmer or the owner of the land carries the can for decommissioning. That's the first thing. Now, the other thing is they can't make money. So they were able to fool the buyers by reports that there was 34% load factor, which is false. There's only 16%. So now they're all discovered, and the wind doesn't blow the way they said at all. So the idea of the government was, we load this onto the bill of the consumer. The bill goes up till the consumer has no electricity. They don't care. They don't care one iota about what the consumer thinks. Let them go to hell because they voted in Starmer. Even so. So the thing is then that they had in an American company, and they discovered that no matter what they did to Thames Water, they couldn't ever bring it into profit. They'd have to spend, and when all would be done, you wouldn't know what the government would do. So you see the government taking over Scunthorpe steel furnaces and trying to do the Chinese out of their money, any money they're due. So there you have the precedent. So with Thames Water, if this company invested a whole lot of pension funds for people and all this sort of stuff and invested billions, you couldn't depend on the government to leave it with them. In fact, if it was going well, the government would take it off them and give them nothing. And you're back to the courts. So this is the way the government thought they could work. Public-private partnership is a sort of like that. You don't build anything. They can't build a children's hospital. They can't build anything. When they get direct responsibility to build something, they can't do it. And they used to be able to build, roads and hospitals and things. But it looks now they can't build anything because they're so dysfunctional they don't even know where to start. And so they leave it to the public sector. But instead of picking things that would be good, that would make a profit, might be a medical centre, let the private company take some of the rent for the running of the medical centre, or whatever it is, if that's the way they want to do it. But that's all right, provided the medical centre is making a profit. But by whatever means. But if it's a wind farm or a solar farm, as I found out, it can never make a profit. So they expect the main company to bail it out of their other resources. So they do that with the windmills by having the company doing toll roads, like the national toll roads, like Terwurka Wind Farm, or like SSE Electricity, that they have another revenue stream, so they can get money for ordinary electricity, or something else they're marketing, or the tolls, or water, or whatever, and then they can they can buy the wind farms and forgive the capital cost of buying the wind farm. So you see the way it works. Now that's been extended. This way of thinking with the woke governments has been extended. And so with the steelworks, they're trying the same. They're trying to get rid of the Chinese and let them carry all their costs. In other words, all the investments the Chinese had been doing is gone. They'll never get their money back. Whereas if they got selling it and closing it up, they might. As the government's buying it, so they'll certainly, with Starmer, give you nothing. And so it's the same with the water. They thought they'd get an American investment company in to provide water for London. And common sense would tell you that they would not pay you for the water, that the people resent an American company owning the water. And they'll stop paying, and they won't pay. And you have a huge challenge then with collection. With the result was the pension funds that invest in the American company will see nothing, only poverty. And so this is beginning to be realised by many of the big investment houses of the world. I hope I've left you that fairly understanding. Like the toll roads in Ireland can charge a toll. Whether it's right or wrong, please don't bother arguing. They can charge a toll. So you can put the toll up a bit. You have to keep it at a certain amount to avoid them going around different ways. And when you have it at a certain rate, people will pay the few pound. If I'm going to Dublin there, I told them the €2 or whatever it is. And so I don't mind. You get up quick and back quick. So they'll pay that. So they have a revenue stream from that, which is ultimately from fossil fuel that's driving the cars and lorries. So they have that. So the plan of the government is then get your other ridiculous, stupid junk, green junk, etc., latched on to the main company, and then it will use its standard revenue to bail out the wind. Now, whether the government knew that wind farms can never repay their capital cost, it doesn't matter. But they're finding it out at the moment. Now, I'll be dealing with that more, of course, in that case. Now, meanwhile, the migrants pour into Britain. Starmer's unconcerned. He thought that the American investors were going to keep the water flowing in London, lovely, pristine service. That's impossible. The amount of money is billions and billions. They'd never get their money back, and still he's doing it. He was down somewhere and he was giving a bit of a speech, and he's talking about the billions he's going to spend on defence. All into weapons and all that. And an awful lot of the investment companies don't invest in the defence because they see it as unethical. They don't want to be investing in bombs and killing people. And it's the same with tobacco. They don't invest in that either. So now he has to turn that around and get them to invest in the defence, in the weapons manufacture, and then train up his armies and get people to join. But he can't even supply them with water in London. So you see how ridiculous he is. Now, one of the things I learned as well is that somebody took him to court on his rejoining Brexit, rejoining the EU and bringing all the UK laws into line with EU law and making it subject to the European Courts of Justice and all of that. And somebody took a case to the Supreme Court in England and it ruled against him. It said he can't do that on his own. He has to get the approval of Parliament. Now, on the face of it, that would finish him with his deal with the EU. But experience teaches he'll plough on. He'll plough on and they'll law him and he'll law them and they'll law and law and law and it'll get so far that it'll become too difficult to unwind. That's my opinion. You'd imagine, I mean, you have people who view my channel have to remember winning your case or being on the side of right is only the start. You still have to take what you owed back, and it's not easy doing it, and you're fighting against the government. So it's some carry on that's going on. Now, he was also at another place where he was talking about energy security, which to him is more wind farms and solar farms. The Drax plant in England takes in, it burns a train load of wood chips from South America every 10 minutes. The Eden Dairy Power Plant in Offaly, a lorry load of the stuff, of the willow or whatever it is, only lasts 8 minutes. So he's going to have energy security. He is a pathological liar. He must know that this is a lie. And still he pipes this out. He pipes it out. But my job anyway on this channel, folks, in less than 20 minutes is to understand the way these crowd work, to understand the way they work. They form an opinion. They set targets without any assessment as to how they're going to be achieved. And then they set off trying to achieve them. And meanwhile, imagine the people in Britain having to face paying for a big war. No waterworks. Nobody wants private investment in them. And I would strongly advise anyone that's investing, steer clear of anything the government tells you they'll give you, because they won't give it to you. The only way they can make the wind turbines profitable at the moment in Ireland, the only way in Ireland is to increase the cost of electricity. I worked it out before. I think it's €2.49 per unit. I worked it out a long time ago. To give them a profit, you'd have to pay them €2.49. And they're currently getting about 82 or 3 cents. So that'll tell you what has to be done and the dilemma they're all in. And eventually the market should adjust to all this. So I hope I've dealt with everything there, folks. A bit of news, very general news. That's enough for now. Very dangerous times. In the next day or two, anything could happen with the Russians. Anything. And don't let them tell you the Russians are all wrong. You know the story. I've explained this all to you. But attacking, this is supposed to be a big attack. And they launched the attack on the eve of the talks. There was brief talks yesterday for a couple of hours in Turkey. They launched the attacks on the eve. So that shows you they wanted to scuttle those talks. Neither the Ukrainians nor the British want any talks to succeed. They lost their mind when Trump went to talk. And they seem to have kind of overpowered Trump at the moment for now. But the next move now is, what is Russia going to do? And it has a very strong army. Putin has the people behind him. He's more reserved than most Russians would be. And if it comes to the worst and the Orishnik missile is dropped with a nuclear warhead, it'll probably be on Germany. And that'll change the whole world. Everything will change just like that. Everything. And we have no government to stand up for us here. Right, folks, I always meant the point that the time the Knock Airport was being built, the Horn International Airport, they had the runway nearly done. And Monsignor Horton was getting money from the government here, Charlie Haughey, and they spent a lot of money on the Knock Airport. Anyway, I know that they were almost ready to open it when they got a call from the US State Department that wouldn't do. They had to extend the runway a bit more because they calculated that the planes they'd be doing wouldn't be fit to land right on the strip. And they made it suitable for landing the big bombers and all of that. But what he told me that they said was, we're not going to use it as attack. We're going to use it for bringing our dead and wounded to Ireland. It'll only be dead and wounded. So when the battle is being fought in Germany and Ukraine and Moldova and on Russian soil, American troops will be wounded and killed. And they'll bring them straight to Knock. And because it's a mission of mercy and there'll be no weapons, that will be seen as all right. So by getting them into Knock, they get them into a neutral territory. And that's the plan that they had. So we'll watch and see will that play out. Why the American people want their children to be stuck in a war in Ukraine and Germany after all that's happened, to fight for a Nazi regime, which is what her Merz government is, a Nazi regime, and Zelensky's a Nazi regime, and all the trouble they had putting them down. They let the Germans out of the box, and now they're arming back, and full Nazi is what they're going for. We'll see you back. That's all I can tell you. Comment underneath. Anyone wants to comment on my programme, you're very welcome to come. And you can comment as a proxy. One of the things that I want to check out more, someone said there that Romanians are entitled to come to Ireland because they're the EU. That's not true as far as I understand. I had that explained to me at great length at a meeting in, I think it was Carrickmacross, how that Ireland can say no to EU citizens, but provided but if they pass a certain test, they have to let them in. But not everyone can come in here, and especially people who are going to be a trouble or can be kept out. That's as I understand it, but I don't have the law here, and I don't have the time to check it out for you. But I'm open to being persuaded on what it is, and then I can check it up myself. Right. I think on the issue of the lad that I done the video on, shouting to crucify Christians and all of this, I think the Gardaí have him. I think they have him. I think they have him caught, and I think they have it. So that's before the courts. I just make the point. He seemed to have a grievance with the ads on the YouTube. But anyway, we'll say no more there. So it's good if that's sorted. We'll see you back, folks, soon. Comment underneath. I don't propose to have any further videos today on any news item. Bye.